Welcome to another episode of Fresh Off the Set. I'm Brooke Mangum.
And I'm Jennifer Stalen. We are so happy you guys are joining us.
Today we're talking all about sleep. Stephanie Lobrot's going to be joining us, and she's going to be breaking things down because she works with people that suffer from insomnia, and she's going to be teaching us some new facts and things that we can do to get better sleep. But I've got to ask you, Jen, because I actually get tired just watching your Instagram stories.
My gosh.
Are you sleeping at all?
No, not really. I tell everyone I microdose sleep, so I could probably learn some tips from her.
You're always going a million miles per minute. Like, you're on airplanes, you're over here, you're over that. So do you have any tips or ways that you do regulate your sleep? Because I feel like you're always either on an airplane, in an arena, or you're here on camera.
I think it's your nighttime routines to really, when you're on that adrenaline high, to bring it down. Also, breathing techniques. I've really focused on my breathing right before I go to sleep, and it helps bring down my cardiac rhythm and really just dive into a deep sleep.
Okay, so here's the thing that you learn when you have kids, right? Is that they make it so that you can't sleep, but they wear you out so much that all you want to do is sleep. It's the catch-22.
Oh, great. That's in my future. I can't wait.
That's it. I now go to bed at I think I registered 9:22 last night.
Wow, I'm jealous.
9:22.
Really
woke up at 6:50. Strong numbers coming in from over here.
I might need tips from you.
You don't want that. Trust me. You can borrow my kids, though. They'll wear you out enough to sleep.
Perfect. I love it. Give you a day off. It'll be fun.
How about we talk to the real expert here and give that a listen?
Let's do it.
I have been so looking forward to having Stephanie Lobrot here and to talk with her. Thank you for sitting down with me, Stephanie.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Appreciate you so much. Okay, let's dive into it. Tell us about your background and education surrounding this topic.
Well, I got a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. So I have worked as a therapist in clinical mental health counseling for about the last 6 years, helping individuals just identify and process difficult life experiences and gain skills to really become their best selves. And I've worked a lot with clients with a range of mental health challenges like depression and anxiety, bipolar or traumatic distress disorders, but always with an eye toward personal growth and really just trying to sustain those improved life skills. So, but one challenge that I did find that was really common across all mental health challenges was insomnia. It's just incredibly common. And at the time, the only thing I could really do was offer a discussion of good sleep hygiene, which doesn't always work to address the underlying causes of insomnia. Mm-hmm. So I've used cognitive behavioral therapy along with other therapy modalities in my practice, but I hadn't been trained in the use of this very specific modality called CBTI, or cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And I knew it was the gold standard of treatment, so I decided to take a deeper dive. And last fall, I had the opportunity to join a group training at Stanford University's Sleep Health and Insomnia program.
Nice.
And so there I received 3 days of really intensive training with their faculty, followed by the last 6 months. I've been in weekly consultation meetings with about 4 or 5 other therapists and a faculty member who's one of the leading researchers in insomnia treatment. So that's been really exciting. My personal mentor, her name is Dr. Nora Simpson. And as I've met with her, I've brought my toughest cases to her, and she's been able to kind of walk me through how to really do the best job we can in treating insomnia.
Sure. A lot of people out there not sleeping. Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Can you break down the psychological process behind sleep, behind it? What are the factors that cause these processes to get thrown off?
Okay, sure. So we like to look at sleep, at the process of falling asleep and staying asleep is really a 2-process model. Process S and process C work together. So process S is our homeostatic sleep drive. It's S for sleep pressure.
Okay.
And process C is our circadian rhythm. So these two processes work together. For sleep pressure, we have what's called adenosine that builds up in our brain during the process of the day. The longer we're awake, the more adenosine we build up during that time. And that adenosine then dissipates when we're asleep. That adenosine is what causes us to really feel sleepy. So if you have caffeine late in the day, caffeine is an adenosine receptor blocker. It blocks it.
That caffeine.
Yes. So caffeine, great in the morning.
Yes.
Love my morning caffeine. caffeine. But the later in the day we get, the more it's going to kind of mask that adenosine.
Is there a time like we shouldn't have? Or is it depending on the person? Because I'm like, oh, it's 3 p.m. Is it too late for a cappuccino?
It all depends on your sleep schedule, your circadian rhythm. If you're someone who typically goes to bed late at night, gets up later in the morning, have that later afternoon coffee. But most people, I like to say, stop at noon. If you can stop at noon or 1 p.m. at the latest. That's the latest I'll do, especially if you're an early riser, early to bed, early to rise. You want to maybe even say 11 a.m. For that last cup of coffee. Now, I don't try to cut out all caffeine. In fact, have the amount you normally have. Whatever it takes you to get going in the day, take that. But just know that it's going to take several hours for that to stop activating, stop working as an adenosine receptor blocker. So what we want to do is build up sleep pressure. The other way we build up sleep pressure is simply by staying awake. That is going to build up in our brain as we stay awake. So if you take a late afternoon nap, that is going to kind of drop that sleep pressure. You will not be quite as likely to fall asleep as easily in the night. You won't be as likely to go straight into that deep sleep in the night either. So sometimes if you want a power nap, maybe earlier in the day is better. Shorter is better. So that's kind of the process. C is your circadian rhythm. And this represents your internal 24-hour biological clock. And this is managed by the suprachiasmatic nuclei. So
that is a very long word.
It is a long word for a very teeny tiny area, a little teeny tiny paired region within the hypothalamus of our brain that acts, this is our master circadian pacemaker in all mammals. And it regulates that 24-hour rhythm. So, which includes your sleep and wake cycles. So that little area of our brain receives light information, what's going on in day and night from the retina of our eye. That light goes clear back into that part of the brain. So in other words, this suprachiasmatic nuclei regulates alertness and sleepiness depending on day and night, typically promoting wakefulness during the day, sleepiness at night, independent of how much sleep you've had. So if you've not had a great amount of sleep, this is a good example of jet lag. You may have been up for 24 hours, and when you change time zones, you go to sleep exhausted because you've built up all that sleep pressure, right? There's so much sleep pressure built up. And then crazy, you wake up 3 hours later, and you're like, what? I was exhausted. You know, this often happens.
Why am I waking up?
Yeah, why am I waking up when I've slept 3 hours in a different time zone? That's because your circadian rhythm has not adjusted yet. Okay, so your circadian rhythm alerts you. What it does in the morning, your temperature is going to start to rise. Your cortisol is going to start to rise. Different hormones are going to start to rise to help you wake up and be ready to face the day. At night, your circadian rhythm is going to bring down your temperature. It's going to bring down that cortisol so that you can relax. So if that's kind of off, like maybe you're in a different time zone, it's sending you those alerting signals way too early. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so these physiological changes that are happening in our body might be a little bit off. So sleep, it is an interaction between this process S, this sleep pressure, and this process C, or circadian rhythm. The timing of sleep is determined by the intersection of these two processes. And usually when they're in sync, it leads to a long bout of nocturnal sleep. But insomnia arises when these processes are disturbed. Either we haven't had a sufficient buildup in sleep pressure, or maybe our circadian rhythm is just a little off for one reason or another. So that's kind of the idea of how that process of falling asleep and staying asleep works.
There's so much behind it. It really is. You think it's just like, oh, you didn't get enough awake time, but there really is so much science behind it. What is cognitive behavioral therapy? You mentioned it a little bit in the beginning.
Yes. CBT. So cognitive behavior therapy, and I'm not even going to start with insomnia first, just cognitive behavior therapy. This is a therapy that evolved in the 60s and 70s from a need to provide more structured, evidence-based alternatives to psychoanalysis. So it emerged from kind of this cognitive revolution focusing on recognizing changing negative or unhelpful automatic thoughts and the resulting emotions and behaviors that come with those thoughts. So I like to think of this process as a triangle. So at the top of our triangle, we have thoughts about ourselves, thoughts about the world that can come and go really quickly and are very well-worn paths in our brain. We're often not even entirely aware of these thoughts. So they're often just below the surface of our consciousness. And they're called automatic thoughts. And they might have some basis in truth. There's reasons we have them, but they are often exaggerated or catastrophized to the point that they become unhelpful. And the irony is that our brain is trying to protect us. Our brain often goes to the worst possible scenario in order to protect us from the worst possible scenario. But then what feelings does that create? What do you find that creates when you go to the worst possible scenario if you're worrying about something?
Anxiety or nervousness and
Yep.
all the things you don't want.
Yep, panic, sometimes even hopelessness. These are super uncomfortable. So then we'll pick up these behaviors to try to get out of the discomfort. And sometimes those behaviors we pick up become maladaptive. So, for example, if you were at work and you had this idea, well, I can't share my idea in this meeting because it'll come out wrong. I'm afraid it might not make sense. And then people will judge. Someone might even laugh. And I will feel so embarrassed. So avoiding those feelings, what are you going to do? You don't share your idea or maybe any other ideas because this fear starts to kick in. But instead of having the intended consequence, your manager and coworkers might start to notice more of a lack of participation. So if this pattern keeps happening unchecked, maybe you stop speaking in other situations, maybe even around friends and family, or maybe you start to doubt your ability to make any sort of contribution. And that fear of rejection or fear of embarrassment grows. So the important thing is with CBT, we recognize and adapt these beliefs to more helpful ones. So this might include finding that thought, catching that thought, challenging that thought, putting that thought on trial. How much evidence do I have to support this? But also how much evidence do I have that it's not entirely true? Or it might be accepting the idea that my ideas have value and finding evidence for that. So that's a more helpful thought. So this is an example of cognitive behavioral therapy being used for just one particular thought. There are myriad thoughts that can be unhelpful that we can learn to challenge and reframe. So cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia.
Yes. I was going to ask how it's useful for insomnia. Yeah, so let's talk about that.
Okay, so this came later. This is actually a very structured program. Helps you to your brain and body to relearn how to sleep by identifying thoughts and behaviors that can cause or contribute to sleep issues. So we usually do this, I like to think of it as a three-legged stool, a three-prong approach. The first leg is cognitive restructuring, which I kind of talked about with CBT. So you're restructuring the processes where we work to identify the unhelpful thoughts and reframe them. So, for example, someone might have the belief, if I don't get at least 7 hours of sleep, I will perform horribly at my job. And therefore, if I consistently get less than 7 hours of sleep, I'm going to lose. So it's very easy to catastrophize like this, especially in the middle of the night.
Sure.
When we're not preoccupied. So we'll challenge this thought, perhaps recognizing all the times a person did get less than 7 hours and performed okay at work. This tends to be something I especially see with perfectionistic people or high achievers. If I'm not perfect or at least outstanding, then I'm not okay. And so working on that sense, recognizing you might not be firing on all engines if you have less than 7 hours, but you're still okay, and okay is good enough.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. So the second leg of the stool is stimulus control. And did you learn about Pavlov's dog in school? Do you remember that?
I'm familiar with it, but I don't remember exactly what it is.
So the dog learns to associate the sound of a bell with food. And the way he learns it, they ring this bell, and every time they ring the bell, the dog gets food. So normally a dog doesn't salivate at the sound of food, right? When you introduce this stimulus control, they've learned they're going to get food. So that's the classic example of stimulus control and conditioning. What we need to do with the stimulus control with CBTI is strengthen the association between the bed and sleep, and weaken the association with wakefulness and frustration and the bed. So this is kind of another psychological training, and it involves setting fairly strict rules, like you're only going to go to bed when you're sleepy. You're only going to use the bed for sleep and intimacy. And you're only going to get out of bed if you cannot fall asleep within 20 minutes. Then you get out of bed. You don't stay in there and reinforce to your brain, this is where I toss, this is where I turn.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
This is where I ruminate.
Yeah.
I like to have my clients set up what I call a marination station, a cozy chair somewhere, preferably out of the bedroom, but it can't even be in the bedroom, where you're going to go and sit and maybe read a kind of boring book. You're going to be comfortable, maybe knit, do something relaxing but not overly stimulating.
Okay.
And then you don't climb back in bed again until you feel sleep. And we want to avoid doing things like that we usually often do, like scroll in bed, watch TV in bed, have a snack. All of those are alerting our brain and training it that we do wakeful things in bed.
Yeah.
So these are contributors to CBTI. And then the final step, and I don't know if you want me to get into this, is it's sleep compression. And this is where we get this is a really highly individualized sleep schedule that I'll work one-on-one with a client on. The whole idea behind this, I don't even have to do this with but we're going to compress the window of opportunity opportunity for you to sleep in the beginning, kind of like an accordion. If you press an accordion in, where does it have to go once it's compressed in?
Right, pretty much. You can't go back out.
Yeah, you just go back out. So if you're lying in bed for 10 hours at night, but you're actually only sleeping 6 hours because you have insomnia, toss and turn for 2 hours till midnight, you toss and turn for 2 hours in the middle of the night, but you're in bed from 10 a.m. till 8 a.m. trying to get that sleep.
Just trying
and trying, and you're associating that bed with restlessness. We're going to compress that. You're not going to go to bed until maybe 1 in the morning.
Okay.
And get up at 7. And well, the first thing we'll do is establish what a good waking time is for you based on your circadian rhythm and your life circumstances. So say 7 a.m. is the ideal time for you to rise. We're going to have you not go to bed till actually quite a bit later. And what's that going to do? During the day, it's going to build that sleep pressure. You're going to be darn tired.
You're going to be tired. You're going to be sleepy.
You are. So when you jump in bed, you're going to go to sleep. And usually you'll head into those deeper stages of sleep as well. And then after a few days, we're going to start to expand that just by 15-minute increments. And it's going to get larger and larger until you are sleeping 8 hours in your bed.
That makes sense. You go to bed a little earlier each night by
Yes.
15 minutes. That's a small amount, but that I'm sure helps over time.
It does. It does. And during that time, you've retrained your brain. When I go to bed, I fall asleep.
It's bedtime.
Yeah, it's bedtime. And so, but this is highly individualized. My clients will keep sleep diaries, and we will go off those sleep diaries. Those will really give us a lot of information as to how best to go about a sleep compression schedule.
Sure. I have a question about, a lot of people turn to medication, and it's very helpful for people to sleep.
Yes.
Can we sleep without medication?
Absolutely. Don't want to say, doctors should never prescribe sleep medication. Often they will prescribe a benzodiazepine, which is like Ambien or Lunesta, or a hypnotic, excuse me. And with the hypnotic, like Ambien or Lunesta, you will sleep. But these are usually best prescribed for really difficult event situation. And often a difficult event will be a precipitating event. It will kick off insomnia. And it's okay to take those medications because you do need some sleep. Maybe you're going through a divorce. Maybe you've just, lost a family member.
Life is stressful.
Yes, some of those big stressors. But the problem is we can become physically dependent, but what's even tougher is we can become psychologically dependent. And the psychological dependence on medication is the toughest thing to break.
Interesting. I would think it would be the other way around.
No, if you've taken Ambien for a few days, maybe 1 or 2 weeks, and you stop taking it, there's going to be a night or two of rebound insomnia. But you'll eventually get back to that. As long as I'm going to have a night or two of sleep. But it was worth it for whatever reason. I can do it now when I couldn't do it at this. But people become psychologically dependent. They think I absolutely cannot sleep without this medication. The thing about CBTI is it's a long-term solution. So it's very easy to actually develop insomnia while you're on a medication because you start to have these thoughts of I can't sleep without the medication.
Interesting.
I am not a good sleeper. Become very psychologically dependent on it.
Yeah, we're worried to not have it. Well, what are some ways beyond sleep hygiene to achieve better sleep?
I'm glad you asked this. Sleep hygiene, we all know sleep hygiene, right? We've heard this. Sleep hygiene is very important, and it's very helpful for healthy sleepers. These are people who maybe don't go to bed as soon as they should, knowing they should. So they're not getting enough sleep because they're putting it off. But for people with insomnia, sometimes sleep hygiene actually causes more anxiety.
Can you describe what sleep hygiene is too? If people are listening and they're like, wait, I don't know what this is.
Okay, so sleep hygiene is things like make sure your room is cool. I like the mid-60s.
I do too. I like it cold.
Yes, cold. Make sure it's dark. Cover any little light sources. Get an eye mask if you need to.
Okay.
Don't eat a heavy meal before bed. Don't drink alcohol before bed. Those things will interrupt your sleep. Doing things that are alerting. There used to be a lot of talk about blue light before bed. I think it's not so much the blue light from screens, but it's the arousing material that we're looking at on screens. We're looking at social media.
The scroll itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things, cutting those kinds of things out in the evening, doing something relaxing, just kind of relaxing, having a nice bedtime routine, maybe taking a bath before bed. That can be really helpful.
I love that.
Well, when you get out of the tub, your body temperature drops, and that's part of falling asleep, is that having that drop in body temperature.
So we need to be cold. It's so interesting. Yeah. When I wake up hot, and that's why you're waking up, maybe is your body is just overheating.
Well, your body temperature naturally will start to rise, usually early morning hours, because it has to. That's part of the alerting process of waking you back up.
up.
But when that happens in the middle of the night, it's not so great. A lot of times people say, but if I'm cold, my feet are cold, I can't sleep. Socks are great.
Okay.
Have everything else cool. Use a cool comforter. Use a cotton blanket. Just keep your feet toasty with socks.
Okay.
So those are some sleep hygiene things. Now, often people with insomnia, they get so overly focused on sleep hygiene that it becomes this rigid ritual. An example I like to use, some people if I compare their sleep to a crystal bowl or a Tupperware bowl. So the crystal bowl is this beautiful, perfect bowl, and I'm going to follow every sleep hygiene thing just right, and my sleep will be beautiful. It's also fragile. You know, if we think of sleep that way, if we think of it as the Tupperware bowl, I mean, a Tupperware bowl is tough. It's not beautiful. It's probably stained by tomato sauce, right? You drop it, it's not going to break. So really, sleep hygiene is great for people who are healthy sleepers, but if you really zone in too much on fear around having a perfect sleep, let's go for that Tupperware bowl. Let's go for less than perfect. It'll be okay.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so hopefully we can get a good sleep hygiene situation going for us. But if we need to turn to CBT for help with insomnia, is that a good long-term approach or is it more short-term?
CBT is absolutely the long-term approach. And this is what the research will show. Medication is a great short-term approach, but it is not a good long-term approach. The reason CBTI is a good long-term approach is because what it's going to do, it's going to give you the tools to know how to recognize when you are perhaps having some of these cognitive distortions around sleep. It's going to give you the tools to know not to stay lying in bed. You might even have the tools to know, hey, I might need to do a little sleep compression. It's going to give you the tools because these precipitating events that will kick off insomnia, those are part of life. Those are going to happen. And if they happen again, you don't need to go grab the sleep medication. You know what to do. You have the tools. Hopefully, you won't even need to call your CBTI therapist, but
yes.
you can always pop back in. You know what I mean? For a refresher. But with CBTI, you've learned how to retrain your body to sleep.
Sure.
So it's a long-term solution.
How do we know if CBTI is good for us? Like, how would we know if we're a good candidate for that approach?
I would say CBTI is I would say almost everybody is a good candidate.
Okay.
If you have bipolar disorder, there's some aspects of CBTI we have to be careful with. The sleep compression, we're not going to maybe tackle that, or that needs to be done very carefully because when you take away sleep, you can trigger mania. Some other common sleep conditions that come along with insomnia might be obstructive sleep apnea or restless legs or periodic
I had restless legs when I was pregnant. It's horrible.
It's really tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so it'll kick off this temporary insomnia, but then we tend to perpetuate it with some
Right.
of these other behaviors. So getting first with people with these things, I'll make sure that they are seeing a doctor and getting these things treated through their doctor. And then very often people will get the restless legs treated, often through medication, or they'll get their CPAP but they still have symptoms of insomnia. They still have to retrain their brain to get out of some of those maladaptive behaviors.
Okay.
So,
That makes sense. And when we think about sleep affecting our overall health, we know that it's good for us, right? That we need sleep to feel better, to, mentally, physically, but why does it affect our overall health so much?
well, again, I will tell you, when I'm working with people with insomnia, I don't like to get too much into this because it tends to trip off arousal. It tends to trip off fear. So we know that it affects our ability to stay alert. We know it affects our immune system, right? We're going to be able to fight off illness. We're going to be more clear and have more clarity, better mental health. But I don't like to get too much into that. Often people who have insomnia know these things. They know it well. And they fear it. So again, I don't focus so much on what are going to be bad aspects of not getting enough sleep. We're just going to focus on your body knows how to sleep. We're just going to retrain it.
Yeah.
You got this.
Yeah, exactly. How would we know what kind of therapy is right for us?
In terms of CBT for insomnia?
Yeah.
Well, if you have insomnia, CBT is the gold standard. There's been a lot of research by Harvard, Stanford, UMass. It has been listed as the gold standard of treatment by the College of Physicians. So it is considered the gold standard of treatment. So it really is the only psychological treatment out there for insomnia, but it has been really proven with a lot of evidence-backed research.
Would we want to try to get good sleep hygiene going, all those things first before we approach CBTI?
Yes. So we do the good sleep hygiene, and we even want to start with a regular wake-up time.
Okay.
Okay, so we're not going to climb into bed until we're sleepy, but we are consistently going to wake up at the same time every day, even on the weekends. Those are going to be the first things you're going to try before you jump into CBTI.
Okay. Tell us about your personal practice. What services do you provide?
Well, I provide therapy for a range of things. I mean, I still work with depression, with anxiety, with all those common mental health challenges, even just difficult life transitions, and we're, just personal growth. But I jumped into insomnia treatment. I got this specialized treatment in insomnia because there are so few therapists that do it. My brother's a primary care physician, and he said to me, I have so many people coming to me with insomnia, and all I can do is prescribe medication. I know this is the gold standard treatment, and I don't know anyone who does it. So I at that point, I thought, here is an area that needs some focus. So I kind of jumped into it that way. So yeah, I'll have a specialty in treating insomnia, but I'll treat all the mental health challenges.
Okay. I love that so much. And there are so many people struggling with sleep. So I'm glad we talked about this today. I wish we could talk about it more because there's so many levels, but that's why they should make an appointment with you so you can go over options with them. Is that the best thing to do, is just start with like a consult?
Yes. I do a free 15-minute phone consultation so that we can figure out if this is a good fit for you. Yeah. So I'll do a free 15-minute phone consultation, and people can just find me at www.goodsleeptherapy.com.
Okay. Stephanie, the sleep whisperer. I love it. Helping us feel better and get better sleep. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining me today. Appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you for letting me join you.
Thank you. And thank you for listening to another episode of Fresh Off the Set. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and we will see you next week.
Congrats, you made it to the end. If you want to continue to freshen up your day, you can watch us on Fresh Living every weekday on CBS Channel 2 in Utah at 1 o'clock. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel, KUTV Fresh Living, and follow us on social media. We will see you next week.